This is Chris Oatley's Artcast, episode 77, an interview with Sarah Marino, visual development artist for Nickelodeon and Real Effects, Part 2. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Chris Oatley's Artcast, the show that goes inside the hearts and minds of successful professional artists. I'm Chris Oatley. I was a visual development artist at Disney before I quit to start my own online art school, the Oatley Academy of Concept Art and Illustration. Find more art instruction and career advice from some of the most inspiring voices in animation, games, comics, and new media at chrisoatley.com. That's CHRISOATLEY.com. In part one of this interview, Sarah Marino told the story of the struggle to find her calling as a professional artist, and how she got her first animation job, not in the art department, but as a production assistant. In this episode, Sarah talks about her artistic success in both animation and kidlit, her newest gig as a background painter at Nickelodeon, her new course at the Oatley Academy, and how a single Post-it note doodle changed her life forever. What were some of the things that the modelers and texture artists liked about concept art? And then conversely, what did they not like?
Well, I can tell you one of the biggest things the modelers don't like is line weight, because they can't tell where the edge of the character was supposed to end or begin. At least at Real Effects. Not every place is like this.
That makes sense, though.
At the time they were doing outsourcing work, they were trying to fulfill a client's needs. It was really important for them to be able to look at the art and make it look exactly like it, because it was a client-based project. So when they were getting kind of ambiguous art without information, it wasn't in their favor to make up that information, because then the client would look at it and tell them to redo it. Why didn't you do it the way I drew? And it's like, well, the info wasn't there.
Right.
So for them, having a really clean drawing that had very little line weight was important. And to me, that was kind of humbling, because as an artist, you're like, line weight makes it better.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, visually, as a standalone drawing, it does make it better. But as a part of the entire production pipeline.
For making the movie.
You kind of have to sacrifice those kind of artistic things that really make it a punchier piece for the sake of the production.
Right. Or do two versions.
Exactly. You can have your personal one and then the one you deliver to the modelers.
Yeah.
And then texture artists, for them, having texture callouts was huge.
Oh, yeah. Which I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, they're really kind of fun, and it's really fun to kind of find what everything's made of, and It's a creative process all on its own.
For those that don't know, a texture call out is basically a VizDev painting of, let's say, a character, but let's say it's Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. You would have the VizDev painting of Hiccup, and then the photo reference, but mostly just the texture reference in swatches all around on the same image, like all around the character, with little red arrows pointing to, okay, the metal of his belt buckle is similar to this kind of texture, and it's there as a reference to the lighters and the texture artists, and even to the modelers if they're doing any type of material aspects in the model itself.
Yeah, and seeing how they use that stuff, and actually being side by side with the texture supervisor, seeing how he would, use the textures from the VizDev or try and recreate them. I feel like seeing that process really helped me understand that visually the information that they needed from me was not necessarily the most aesthetic portfolio information. Because when you're really working in the animation industry doing VizDev, not every painting you do is going to be this beautiful thing. You're doing a lot of the texture callouts and the nitty gritty. For Book of Life, I actually designed and painted the Book of Life. And, that was scrutinized to all hell, but also somehow got approved. It somehow got approved really quickly at the same time because I was really conscious of what they were looking for in terms of the reference I was given, and then incorporating that, and then making sure to be really thorough with preparing the reference and the textures for the texture artists. Those kinds of things made me more conscious as a part of something greater than just being a standalone artist. I was really conscious of the entire process and the whole team effort of making a movie.
So before we get into Nickelodeon, let's talk about children's books and YA. You've been living a dual life for quite a while. Can you just tell us about that, and kind of how this other career wove into your animation career, and then bring us up to date on some of this, whatever you can talk about that's recent. There's some exciting things happening.
Sure. Yeah. So some of what I've already talked about was being motivated by storytelling. So it's kind of no secret I read a lot as a kid, and I still read a lot just because it's really cathartic for me. It's a way to not look at a screen unless you have a Kindle.
Right.
But for me, Harry Potter was huge growing up, and I was obsessed with Mary Grand Prix's drawings and all the little chapter illustrations. Yeah. And those really spoke to me as a kid, not to mention just all the other books I read, like all the Golden books.
Oh, yeah.
And, my senior thesis was on book covers, albeit more serious ones. I happened to have an older sister, and she happened to go to school with my current agent, Kathleen. And my sister, being the wonderful, loving sister that she is, would occasionally share my art on Facebook. And Kathleen saw it and reached out to me because at the time she was helping one of her clients who was self-publishing, and they wanted someone to illustrate the book cover. And that was the Larkstorm project.
Yes.
And I was freaking out. I was like, this is when I was a PA, actually. So I wasn't really doing art full time at my job. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up, And I ended up working my butt off on this project, and it went over really well.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful work.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm still pretty okay with it, because you know how you look back at something you did a few years ago, and you're like, crap. I'm still that one. Feel like I put. It's pretty good. I don't hate it when I look at it.
It is a great feeling. And it's interesting. Yeah. The more distance I have from art, I went through the phase of hating it, and now I like it again.
Right. Exactly.
Now I'm like, it's not too bad. I was really bold with acrylics. I mean, sure, there's all the obvious issues, but
I look at it and I'm like, I made some pretty good decisions here. Not bad, Sarah. Yeah. Good job for not knowing what you were doing.
Yeah, that's a great feeling.
Past Sarah did an okay job. So I guess it was a good enough job where Kathleen, she offered representation to me after I successfully did this book cover. I started my relationship with New Leaf Literary. They're a wonderful agency. Kathleen's super hands-on with my career, and she loves the fact that I'm in animation. Actually, most of her clients are in animation, which is kind of awesome. Like Liz Climo, who works on The Simpsons, is represented by Kathleen, and Shane is now represented by Kathleen. And actually, Betsy Bauer is now represented by my agency.
What do you know?
Yeah, and not because of me. She did it all on her own.
Wow.
So that's crazy.
You and Betsy are at the same agency, and you and Elsa are on the same show.
I know. This is craziness. So you really called it. Good job. So they do this thing where we make our own postcards, and then I get those shipped to the agency, and then the agency will postmark them and send them out to all the art directors and editors, because they have a relationship with all of the publishers that I personally, on a personal level, don't. That happened. And then maybe a few months later, I got my first bite, which was from Simon & Schuster, who wanted me to illustrate 2 reissues of an older middle grade book, which is the Steal Away Home series, which is a really awesome experience because I got to really own my own illustration, which is different from the animation industry where most people don't see your final product, which is totally cool. The final product is the feature.
Right.
And with book covers, I get to take ownership with obviously the direction of my art director and everything. And so that was a really awesome experience. And then kind of in between, I've worked with Candlewick and Penguin and Simon and Schuster again. And so it's kind of been a snowball effect where you won't hear anything for a little bit, but then I've been consistently doing book covers every couple months now, kind of as a side thing. And they always pop up at the most inopportune times.
And you have to say yes.
And you have to say yes because, oh my God, it's Candlewick, you know?
Right.
At the time that I did my Candlewick cover, Winter Frost, last year was actually the time where I was testing with Nickelodeon and doing OT on Book of Life. So that crap was bananas. I didn't sleep for like a month.
Wow.
But it paid off. And so, because Book of Life is going to look gorgeous, Winter Frost got me nominated for an SCWBI thing, and I work in Nickelodeon now. So that horrible November, December was a good thing in the end. Now I'm actually at the place where, bless my agent so much, she and I had a conversation, and she's like, yeah, I really want you love things that are magical and fantasy. You tell really great stories, because I've pitched some things to her, and she's like, let's focus on your ideas. And I think this is a great prompt for anyone. She's like, come up with a character and we'll go from there.
Oh my.
And, you know, I've already been spinning my wheel and doodling and all this kind of stuff. But it's so awesome to have someone that believes in what I do and also wants to support me and bolster me. And, you know, having an agent is not for everyone. But for me, it's just been an invaluable thing. Wow. I mean, Kathleen is just wonderful. And it's weird because I've pitched on different projects and not gotten them. And I'm always like, oh no, did I let Kathleen down? And she's like, you're going to get a better project and you're going to rock it and it's going to be great. Yeah. Hearing that from someone who's in the industry and believes in my work is really helpful. Because when you don't, you know, you test for something and you don't get it, you're like stuck in this circle of why didn't I get it? What could I have done better? And, you know, Kathleen will be honest with me for sure. She gives me the tough love when I need it, but it's so cool to have someone that at the end of the day still has my back. I'm very lucky.
What can you tell us about Book of Life?
Oh man, Book of Life. I get really emotional talking about it because I think I mentioned on the Rising Star podcast, but long story short, I was wrapping up as a coordinator on Despicable Me. And I remember that year in March, I was like, you know what? I've got to do art. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to tell them I can't be around the creative process anymore and not be creative. That was kind of the itch I needed to scratch after a year and a couple of months of being in production. And so I talked to my art manager. I would meet with her once a month. Or not art manager, production manager. And I told her I need to really do this. And I would love to stay here. I love working with everyone, but I have to do this. And it was kind of interesting because I guess I had really proven myself as a valuable employee in production because it was okay, we'll look into it kind of thing. And I ended up doing a little bit of storyboard revisioning because House of Cool was doing the majority of the boarding, and we had my wonderful friend Rod being the only in-house storyboarder at Real Effects, and they needed help with simple things like we need the mouth open, or can you darken the hair here, or can you make her hands clap instead of by her side, things like that. So I had two computers. I had my production laptop and I had my iMac with a Wacom tablet. And that was my desk setup for a month at Real Effects, where I would bill half and half time doing some cleanup work and then wrapping up. I was managing cloth at the time because most of the asset stuff had passed except cloth. On Despicable Me. Freebirds was just starting. Despicable Me was going away.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So this is where the fated, you never know kind of moment for me was I had nothing to do. So I doodled the main character, Maria, who's played by Zoe Saldana. And I doodled her on a Post-it. And my friend, who is she was one of the coordinators for editorial, she came by and saw it and was like, oh my God, this drawing is so awesome. Jorge, the director, is going to love it. I'm going to take a photo of it on my phone and show him. And I was like, okay, go for it. I'm scared. And the next day, Tiffany came up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, Jorge loved your drawing."
Yeah.
She's like, "They want you to do a test. Like, don't tell them I told you, but I think they're gonna, come to you because they really need help to like get stuff ready for some meetings and blah, blah, blah." And so it was literally that one drawing getting in front of someone who had actual hiring power.
Yeah.
That just kind of changed my life. And I did a test and it went well. And I was actually the first artist brought on outside of the core team. So Jorge and Sandra were doing character design. Sandra's Jorge's wife. And Paul Sullivan and Simone Varela were art director and production designer. And I was the first artist brought in as kind of the art team, because most of the art team at Real Effects was still on Freebirds. Right. I started working with Sandra, especially. I was focusing on character stuff because Jorge didn't have enough time. And that's kind of how I started on Book of Life. So it was that whole, luck is opportunity meets timing, or what is it? Preparedness.
Right. I think that's basically it.
You make your own luck. I basically had been networking my butt off. I had gone to CTN, and that motivated the crap out of me to start doing more art.
Yeah.
And I made the decision for myself to pursue art, and that kind of influenced my current employer to try and do something about it. And then I, by chance, drew a drawing, which I still have framed. It's kind of like my dollar bill, like the first dollar bill you earn.
Right.
So I still kept that drawing after all this time. And that was kind of the moment that my work was ready and I was ready and the opportunity was ready. And that doesn't happen overnight, and you don't know when it's going to happen, but you have to be prepared for it. And that's kind of how I fell into doing Book of Life. And then I had the wonderful blessing of working for 2 years almost on a film that I think is just going to blow everyone away.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you've been toured through some of the art, so you've seen what's to come.
Good God.
And Chris can vouch. It looks exactly like the concept art.
Yep.
It's a rare, wonderful thing that this movie looks so close to the art that we all worked on.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud of the team. I'm so proud of Jorge. The story is a wonderful story about family and friendship. And I don't think a project like that comes very often. And I'm just lucky that it was my first feature where I worked in the art department on it, because I feel like this movie's art department will be very much appreciated for a while. So buy the art of book, because it's going to look amazing. And it was just a wonderful experience. And Jorge, I mean, I can't say enough wonderful things about him and the entire team.
Yeah, he's amazing.
If you get the opportunity to meet Jorge, whether it's at CTN or go to one of his talks, he is fantastic. He's one of the most encouraging, driven persons I've ever met.
Yeah.
So, and he truly, it was so weird to see, like Real Effects was excited about making Freebirds. It was their first feature, but the change in each department when they got to work on Book of Life was so palpable. The excitement that everyone has for like making and working on that film, it's a once in a lifetime thing. You don't, get that excited about your day job every day.
Right.
And it was a really special thing, just being so thrilled to get your next assignment, no matter what it was, because it was just a wonderful experience. I'm very, very blessed that I got to work on it.
Are you able to perceive anything different in your art that developed, that caused you to reach kind of that tipping point? Is there anything in your actual art itself that you feel like, okay, I was prepared enough because of blank?
Well, CTN kind of, I think, took my work to a different level. I would say the feedback that I got from the portfolio I brought, Pascal Campion gave me the most intense, wonderful portfolio review I've ever had in my entire life.
He has that effect on people. Yeah,
I was like shaking and crying, And so, talking with you, everyone is so generous with knowledge at CTN. And I felt so prepared with conquering the next piece that I did going into CTN. going out of CTN
Mm-hmm.
because of the knowledge that I gained. And I would say that one of the other big turning points for me was I was looking at a bunch of art every day, but I don't feel like I was employing what other people are doing as strongly because there was a fear of copying.
Yeah, right.
I started really looking at what other people were doing that was working and picking what I liked about it and what I wanted to do with that in my work. Talking about Pascal, like his lighting is amazing.
Yeah.
How can I take that idea of lighting and storytelling and put it in my own work and my own workflow? And I started really being more perceptive past like, oh, that's a pretty image, and really kind of dissecting what I liked about it, even if it was just like a stylistic choice about how they did their hair or how they simplified buildings in the background. It was like, oh, that's how I can approach this in my work. And I feel like I wasn't doing that as much until after CTN because it was a fear of not figuring out the art on my own, I think. And you can, I mean, the people that came before you were referencing other people who came before them. So it's you have to be like a sponge. Like you can't just live in your own little artistic bubble because that's not how you grow and how your work elevates to like the next professional level.
Yeah. And come see us at CTNX in November.
Yeah, I mean, CTN was crazy.
We're gonna
crazy good.
Gonna be rocking it out. And you can get a portfolio review from Sarah herself, which, as a side note, are amazing.
I'm flattered. I mean, I try to be honest because I was so moved by the people that were honest with my work that I would want that same kind of review. So that's kind of what I try and give. So
yeah, I mean, it is a portfolio review from Sarah Marino is not to be missed.
Oh no, I'm never gonna get to eat or sleep. No.
That's what CTNX is all about.
I know.
That's what it's all about.
Lots of Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tons of Starbucks, tons of fish tacos. Okay, so take us to Nickelodeon.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Okay. So I was wrapping on Book of Life, and Real Effects was a wonderful opportunity, but I was definitely looking to grow. I really wanted to see what else was out there for me and see if I could learn from another group of people or another life experience. And I mean, I really wanted to move to California, especially after going to CTN. It's like, holy crap, why am I now out here all the time? So, after CTN, I actually did do some interviews at CTN. I got really good feedback from some different companies, and I was like, okay, maybe my work's ready for kind of the next step. Even though I can't show work from Book of Life, my personal work, had been improving, and maybe there was something out there. So upon my normal social media rounds, I logged into LinkedIn.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's a feature on LinkedIn that, based on your experience, we think you would be interested in this. And a character design position for Shimmer and Shine and Nickelodeon was available. So I Googled it, and there's one article. I think now there's a second one. But at the time, there was one article about how the show Shimmer and Shine, created by my show creator, Farnaz, was picked up by Nick Jr., and it featured two genies and their human friend and all the shenanigans, the magical stuff that they get involved in. And there's one concept art piece, and I was like, wow, this is really cute, and it looks like something I would be interested in and something I could totally do, because Jorge, as we know, worked at Nickelodeon and has a really cool 2D sensibility about his work. So even though I'd worked in CG, I have been working really closely with Jorge and kind of like his 2D vision.
Which, as a side note, comes across in the animation in Book of Life. I mean, it's incredible, the hybridization of 2D and 3D. And in fact, I'll embed the trailer in the blog post associated with this podcast episode, so
awesome.
you can watch it.
Yeah, we were doing crazy research and trial and error on how to make Jorge's beautiful designs translate into 3D, which is not easy, might I add. There's a whole set of issues trying to make that work, but we did, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does look amazing.
But yeah, so I had like a kind of 2D sensibility with the show I worked on. So, or with the film. And so I was reading the article, and then I stumbled across the name Andy Bialk. He freelanced on Book of Life, and he came into the studio for a couple weeks as a freelancer. And
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
So I was Facebook friends with him, and we'd hung out when he was in town. I knew Andy, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. It says he's attached as art director. I haven't heard him say anything because at the time he was working at Disney on the Mickey Mouse shorts.
Right.
So I sent him a Facebook message, and I was like, hey, Andy, I just applied for this job, and I saw from an article like a couple months ago you were attached as art director, and I was just wondering if you knew anyone I could send my portfolio to in production or, you know, or in HR. And he replied to me, and he said, well, you can send it to me because I'm the art director.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And it kind of snowballed from there, where I took a character test, and they liked that so much, but they liked my other work, and they're like, oh, maybe we want her to do prop color styling too. Do you mind if we test you in that? And I'm like, sure, I'll test in that. Holy crap, I don't know what's happening. And then they were like, Sarah, we love your other stuff too. Can you do a background test? And I'm like, is this normal? So I had like a month of testing.
Wow.
And that's not necessarily normal because sometimes you're only applying for one job. But
exactly.
I knew the art director, and he knew my work, and he worked with me on Book of Life and knew I could do a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. So he was almost more torn on where to place me. And, you know, it's not just his decision. It's also the show creators and the teams. So he just wanted to see where he thought I would fit best. And I actually got the call. Shane and I were, he was driving me to the airport because I was going home for Christmas break, and we parked in the parking lot at DFW, and I got a phone call from an LA number, and I picked up, and I was offered the job at Nickelodeon.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was like the best Christmas gift ever.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I didn't accept right away on the phone, but I did email them the next day, and I was like, hey, I'm totally doing this.
Yeah, right.
And don't be afraid to ask for time with your decision, because this is your life, and they're going to understand that.
Yeah.
If they're a good place to work, they're going to, you know, be really respectful of your decision. Got back to Real Effects and gave my notice, worked for 2 weeks. Then I flew out the next day after my last day at Real Effects to Burbank to find an apartment. And then I flew back, and then all my stuff was packed into a U-Pack, and then I shipped my car, and then 2 days later I flew back to Burbank for real.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy whirlwind. My shipment didn't get there before I had to go to work, so I was living out of a suitcase, and you know, but yeah, it was a really amazing experience. But it's what they say, though. 80% of getting the job is networking, whether that comes from a previous job, from CTN, from Twitter. I mean, all the people that you meet, you don't know where they're going to end up, and then subsequently where you might end up. Because if Andy was an art director, I mean, who's to say if the art director would have, you know, gotten their hands on my portfolio? Yeah, like if I hadn't worked on Book of Life with the freelance team there, I would not have, you know, gotten to know Andy, who's the art director. And it's just, the industry is a lot smaller than you think.
Oh, yeah.
And being a nice person and having good work, as you say, the have good work and be great to work with are the two big things. And I completely agree, because Andy would not have wanted me to join him on his team if he didn't like my work or like working with me in the past. That also subsequently led him to bringing Shane on the team, who's also now at Nickelodeon.
As it should be.
We're kind of a package deal, I guess. Yeah, so I ended up starting doing character design stuff on Shimmer and Shine, and now I'm full-time doing background painting, which has been awesome because, you know, a feature is really, really cool, but no one sees your art unless they buy the Art of book or go to your website, which is a small number of people. But in television, especially in 2D, your background paintings are the background. I'm putting my art on the screen for everyone to see, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
My show doesn't air till next year, 2015, but definitely look out for Shimmer and Shine. It has a My Little Pony kind of crossover appeal. It's definitely not just for kids.
And there will probably be some pre-awareness stuff.
Oh yeah,
going out and everything. We'll keep everyone posted if there's any Sarah stuff visible.
It's actually been really cool. The response to my work on the show has been awesome. One of my first paintings I did is now hanging in the CEO of Nickelodeon's office.
Nice.
So that was pretty awesome to hear. And it's also a few other paintings are now hanging around Nickelodeon, which is so weird, but it's a really good weird. It's really cool to work with Andy, who's so supportive of the team. Yeah. He's been really great in kind of pushing us with a really fun style, and it's a magical girl show. So I'm living out my Sailor Moon dreams at work every day with Elsa.
Yeah, it's crazy. That is craziness.
So we have a really great team.
Yeah, no kidding. What do you think is the question that artists who are in school or considering school, what do you think is the question that they should be asking themselves that they aren't?
Oh man,
likely asking themselves.
I wasn't asking myself. I'm trying to think of from my experience. I wasn't asking myself a few things. I wasn't asking what really motivated me and that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. That was huge. I was very much influenced by the kind of traditional structure of my school. And then I guess the other thing would be, after figuring out, okay, I want to work in animation, what is it exactly that I want to do in animation? Because time and time again, I review portfolios, and one of the first things I ask, even before I look,
right,
I love asking, what is your dream job? I do this when I ask high school students in National Portfolio Day. I do it at CTN when I'm interviewing. I do it when I'm interviewing at my job. I'm like, what is it that you want to do? And I think asking yourself that question, you don't always have the answer right away, and that's okay. I didn't. For me, I do enjoy character design, but I love color.
Yeah.
I love painting with color. I love thinking about color. I like critiquing it. I like dissecting it. Like, to me, I get more fulfillment from more than black and white. And I think having that realization is really important for moving forward with your work, because I learned pretty quickly that I didn't want to do storyboarding. I personally don't think I'm the best storyboarder because I spend a lot more time on a drawing than I should.
Right. Yeah, me too. And I don't love drawing that much.
I love painting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So for me, it's asking those essential questions. It's, what do I want to do? And then even further than that, what is it I want to do with my work?
Yeah.
So it's figuring out what really makes you tick. When you're like, well, I want to be a Viz Dev artist. Great. But there's definitely
specialization.
Yeah. So having a specialization isn't a bad thing. And that's one thing I feel like school tries to push you away from.
Right. Yeah. Drives me insane.
Yeah. But if you're really, really passionate and really, really good at something, be good at it and like really pursue it. I'm definitely better at painting. And that's where I ended up at my job, because even though the initial job posting was for character design, and I did well at that in my test, I actually took it an extra level, and they didn't ask me to do it, but I actually painted the character.
Nice.
And because I love painting.
Well, and you'd already done so much of that at on Book of Life even.
Yeah, I was character painting for like 6 months.
Right.
So I did that, and they were like, oh man, she can paint too. Yeah. Let's have her do this or try this. And so I was totally going to be happy doing character design. But I also made the opportunity for myself by showing them, look, I can also do this. And it's also what really, really drives me. I take the decisions in color making or color picking really seriously, to the point where on that test, the main character that they gave me to match was primary colors. And they told me only to draw variations of a female friend of this guy character. And I did that, but then I wanted to paint it. And because he was primary, I'm like, I'm going to make this character secondary, and I'm going to sneak it in, and they're not even going to realize why it's so appealing, because I made her have red hair, a green shirt, and purple pants or whatever. And I love making those decisions because that's the stuff that really excites me, is telling stories with color. So I was able to communicate that she was a friend simply because they were complimentary. And that's the stuff that really excites me.
If an aspiring artist or a pre-professional artist were interested in perhaps learning a bit more about color directly from you, Sarah, where might they go to acquire said knowledge?
I am so excited that you asked me to help mentor Magic Box students, which I will be doing come this fall. And there's going to be auditions, and we'll review portfolios, and we'll handpick a really dedicated bunch. And weekly meetings. We'll kind of go through your assignments and talk about color and stories and anime and cartoons and everything that you love. And we're going to just really explore how to push your art to the next level. Because doing Oatly Academy, and one of the reasons I have maintained such a great friendship with you is I see eye to eye with everything that you teach, which is the do great work, be great to work with, and knowing the fundamentals. And I'll really be focusing on the fundamental assignments. So it's going to be really exciting.
I'm just buzzing with excitement. It's going to be fantastic. We invented the Magic Box as a response to what our subscribers wanted. That's what they wanted, a self-guided option. They wanted digital painting, and I built the Magic Box. And then the next wave of, hey, I want this, was we want the mentor guided, the instructor led version of Magic Box. And so I called Sarah Marino. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of your art, but it's one thing to be a great painter. It's another thing to be able to really articulate in critiques, like why you're actually giving the advice that you're giving, and it's not just some random, intangible, impossible to follow note. And so over the last year, as I started to try to build an actual school, not just, hey, it's my website and I have some tutorials for sale, but actually build a for real school at the Oatly Academy, I've been reaching out to friends who can they're not only good artists, but they can actually affect change, significant change in the lives of the students. And they can really guide a student to a result, to a measurable improvement. And I've seen you do that over and over and over again with people at CTN, just right there in person, and just watching the connections happen in the mind of the student listening to you, and it's just like, oh man, it's time. It is time, friends.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited. My ability to critique portfolios and then also in turn put it into my own work comes from just the fact that the artist community is so helpful in giving feedback. I mean, like I was saying before, you can't create art in a bubble. You have to be aware of the other people in the industry and what they're doing and what works and what doesn't and what the people they were looking at. More knowledge is only going to make you better. And for me, I definitely am always on the pursuit of just more feedback. Or I love checking in my art director's office when I turn something in. I'm just really excited to be like, hey, what did you think? What can I do? I love hearing what I can change or what he liked, what he didn't like. That's the only way you're really going to get better, is to put your work in front of people and get feedback, whether it's good or bad. And you have to be willing and open to receive it. I'm hoping that's what people get out of my class, is just being able to see what they've got as a really good foundation and how we can turn it up to the next level.
Where can the Artcast listeners find you online?
My actual website for my portfolio is just sarahmarino.com. My name is spelled with an H. And I'm also on Twitter at Sarah Marino. I'm on Tumblr as sarahmarino.tumblr.com. And on Instagram, I am Sarah K. Marino on Instagram, because some other Sarah Marino took that from me. I know, my perfect system. But yeah, those are the main online areas I use to show my work. And I love Twitter, so it's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Send me a little and I love to answer questions too. So if you have a bigger question that I can't do on Twitter, definitely go to my Tumblr. I love answering asks, so you can definitely reach me on there. And yeah.
And we will link to all of those sites in the blog post associated with this podcast episode. Sarah, thank you so much. Great as expected. And I'm looking forward to our Q&A. That's going to be fun.
Me too. I'm looking forward to everyone's questions, because this is the kind of stuff that when I get home from work that I get really excited about, because the artistic community is just so wonderful and the people are what make it. So thank you.
We're going to begin accepting applications for Sarah's first Magic Box Mentor session within the next few weeks. If you're interested, please visit chrisoatley.com/magicboxmentor and sign up to be notified via email as soon as auditions open. Sarah's mentorship session, as well as the others we have planned for the future, are being offered to Magic Box students only. If you're interested in the Magic Box or you're unfamiliar with the Magic Box, you can go to chrisoatley.com/magicbox to learn more. As with all of our live classes, Painting Drama, which is our course on composition, Films on Paper, which is our course on visual storytelling, space is extremely limited, so you'll want to jump on it right away. The last time we offered Painting Drama, this past spring, we had to close auditions within just 2 days because we were inundated with applications. And in just a couple weeks, Sarah and I are going to be doing a live Q&A event for Magic Box students only. This is for all Magic Box students. You do not have to be in Sarah's mentorship group in order to attend. This is for everyone in the Magic Box. So keep an eye on your email inbox for the announcement. You might want to check your spam folder and make sure that you are receiving emails from the Oatley Academy. And yeah, it's going to be super fun hanging out with Sarah and answering your questions. We're going to have screen sharing set up so we can do draw-overs and demos and that kind of thing. But we'll be answering questions about anything that you need to ask us, really any question of any kind, not just digital painting, but portfolio questions, career questions, website questions, story questions, personal project questions, anything that you need help with. We're really just going to try and get to as many questions as we possibly can in the amount of time. It'll probably be a couple of hours. So one more time, chrisoatley.com/magicbox to learn more about and enroll in the Magic Box, chrisoatley.com/magicboxmentor to learn more about Sarah's mentorship program. Whew! Okay, now it's time for the breakthrough. Today's breakthrough story comes from Jim Messling. And Jim writes, "Hey Chris, I have some exciting news." There's lots of exclamation points here. "I am a third-month Magic Box student, learning a ton. Thank you. I listened to all of your podcasts, and I just did it. I created my own project and launched it on Kickstarter this past Friday, and today it is a staff pick." Wow. That's awesome, Jim. Oh, you're bound to get some attention from that. The premise or inspiration is, what if The Wind and the Willows were set as a sci-fi adventure series? Your fancy animal painting homework is helping to up my skills. Well, that's encouraging. The comic book series is called Into the Void, and you can find the link to Jim's website as well as his Kickstarter campaign at chrisoatley.com/Sarah-Marino-P2, as in part 2. Again, that's chrisoatley.com/Sarah with an H-Marino-P2. Congratulations, Jim. That is really awesome. I'm delighted to hear that the Artcast played a role in inspiring you to take the leap of faith that is obviously and literally paying off now. And I'm encouraged to hear that the Magic Box has helped to equip you for that. Thank you so much for writing. If you my dear listener, have a breakthrough story that you would like to share on the podcast, please go to chrisoatley.com/breakthrough. You can upload your story via audio. You can call in and leave your breakthrough story on the listener line at 818-588-OATS. Or you can just submit it via email. And all of the necessary details are available there at the link. And you don't have to be a student. You don't have to be a student at the Oatley Academy. If the Artcast or the blog or some interaction that you had with an Oatley Academy teacher or another student at a convention, if we have done anything to make a difference to help you achieve some sort of creative or business breakthrough in your life, we would love to hear about it. I know the other listeners would love to hear about it because those stories are super, super encouraging to everyone involved and everyone affected. So again, chrisoatley.com/breakthrough.